joined by a couple of the most winningest coaches, biggest coaches in the Valley. We're joined by Edinburg North coach Richard Tressler, former Mission High coach Iris Iglesias, Real Hondo's Debbie Esparza, and Harlingen South's Elias Martinez. Coaches, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So coaches, we're just, how have you guys been? Like I just mentioned, right now, we just flipped the calendar over to May. Right now we're talking softball. We're making trips to Corpus, across the Valley, different things. And it's a new norm for us. And how are you guys have been just with there being no softball this time of year? Coach Tressler, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, it happened so fast. I really don't think any of us had a lot of time to, adapt to it. I mean, we played a game March 13th against Donna North. We won that, and I was already getting geared up for the following week, which was spring break, where we were going to have two tough games against Edinburg High and Westlaco East that we never got to play because of all this. So it's been an adjustment. I mean, it's hard and it's difficult. Not only for the girls that are going to have the opportunity to continue and play again, but for those kids that aren't ever going to get to play in high school again. I feel really badly for them. I mean, that for me, even though I don't have any seniors, was the hardest part as a coordinator, because we were still in, soccer season was in swing and track, and all those kids lost out. And that for me, that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part.
Debbie, I know you guys were Coach Esparza. I know you guys were going to Raymondville that day. Just what was the mood like on the bus heading that way, and was there any uncertainty?
A lot of questions in the kids' minds about what happens after this. Do we still get to practice? What's our next step? Like you're saying, because there were games scheduled during the spring break time. But then once the hammer got hammered down on them, I think the kids were just deflated and didn't know exactly which way to turn and what's coming next. I mean, the two seniors we had on our team, they kind of knew what was next. But like Tressler said, it's the young ones that were like just coming up and just starting to blossom and starting to find themselves going into the end of the season, starting to really get their momentum. And all of a sudden, I'm done. What do I do now? And they were kind of lost. I feel like the kids, it took them a while to adjust to not having their daily routine of the practice and getting around the other girls that they get to see a lot.
Coach Martinez, you guys were getting ready to start district against Los Fresnos that Friday, but Los Fresnos had already pulled the trigger earlier than everyone else. What was that discussion like with Coach Blackman, and when you guys made that decision to not have that game Friday?
Well, that decision was made by their AD. So, I had no input in it, or neither did Coach Blackman. It was a tough decision, but it was the right decision because of the safety for everybody. I mean, and then the following, that was on a Thursday. Then on Friday, well, everybody else canceled. So it was a shock. Quite honestly, we're all still in shock. Our girls can't believe that, they're done, especially our seniors. We'd been on a roll and everybody was excited and it was going to be a tough ball game. And, everybody's, and myself personally, I'm still in shock right now. 1st of May, this would be like the first round of the playoffs. So, it's been tough, but I mean, it was the best decision that they could have made because of safety. We're all still adjusting with it.
Coach Iglesias, watching all this unfold, did anybody reach out to you as far as, maybe which way to go on how to handle? At the time, we knew that it was until March 29th that was the first date on maybe sports can come back. So we were all hoping for that date. But in that time period, did other coaches reach out to you on maybe some advice or maybe on how to handle these things?
Well, I did talk to a few, but, all in all, we went through something similar with this when we were back in, I think it was 2009, the swine flu, and we were out for a week or so, I think, but then we were coming back. So I think the mindset everyone had that experience, that it was like, we'll be out for a while and then we'll make it up. And, you know, it just kept on, and it just got, I think, a lot more scarier for everybody that was going on, the unknown, and not just for the kids, coaches, everybody. So, it was, you know, they're all looking out for safety. And I knew it was, you know, a hard decision to make all the way around throughout the state and now throughout the United States. And so it was just like, whoa, you know, this is serious stuff. And I feel for everybody. I felt for the coaches and trying to talk to their kids, you know, but if anybody can do that and, you know, try to keep them together, will be coaches. And, you know, they're the ones that can do that. So it's just, you know, the unknown, and it's the first time for all this to happen. You know, I feel for everybody.
You know, when we got the news, we first saw that the schools were shutting down. And when I first saw that, you know, that told me that the next domino was UIL. They would come with that final, the final hammer. Coaches, what was that conversation like when you had to tell your athletes, or they might have already known because of social media and just how quickly things get out, but just, did you guys host any kind of Zoom meeting, or how did you guys get a hold of y'all's athletes?
What we did is we got, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Elias.
Go ahead.
what we did is we had through our Remind app, and then through our text, and then we had a Zoom meeting with the girls, and through it all, you know, everybody was in shock. You know, we were expecting to come back after spring break, you know, practice for a week and then start going at it. Planning on making some adjustments, you know, maybe playing like one round, and so that's what we were looking at, you know, some type of adjustment. And then when we finally got the word, you know, and we told everybody, I mean, they were, you know, and through media, you know, they knew before we did, you know. Right. So, you know, we're all in shock, and, you know, we just got to make the best of it. And again, like, you know, as coaches, we all feel, especially for our seniors, you know, because they had, like in our case, you know, we didn't have a last first district ball game, you know. So we finished off our last game against Lyford, preparing for district, and you know, we never got a chance to it. So everybody's in shock, but you know, we're adjusting to it. And it's like I always tell the girls, you know, don't worry about what you can't control, worry about what you can control. So play each game, take each moment like it's your last one, because you never know, it just might be. And in this situation, you know, our last practice, our last game, you know, those were our last ones.
Yeah, we still have, after the Donna North game, our kids, because we played at home, they put their bags with their helmets and bats in the restroom, which kind of doubles in our dugout as a equipment room for the, you know, coming back to practice on Saturday, which never happened because of the shutdown. And then you think with each announcement that, well, maybe in 2 weeks, and maybe in 2 weeks after that. And when we finally had our meeting, you know, the reality hits you that, you know, you're not coming back. And like Elias just said, that's the hardest thing is, you know, the disappointment. It was, you know, it was a pretty big gut punch, I think, for everybody. And, you know, it's something that we're, like he also said, that we're going to have to adapt to and make adjustments. And, you know, nobody expected that. I mean, I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime, and I'm sure the rest of these coaches haven't either. And, you know, for our kids, it's psychologically, I think it's the hardest thing of what you lost. And he also alluded to something that's, you know, we tell our kids all the time, play like it's your last game, because it very well might be. So, you know, this is definitely a very, very difficult lesson to that saying.
Coach Esparza, you want to chime in?
I just feel like that there was a lot of uncertainty that the kids didn't quite understand, grasping their maturity level. I know our kids were talking about it like Wednesday at practice and Thursday at practice. So you're trying your best to remind them, you know, take care of yourself, wash your hands, be conscious of yourself, hygiene, you know, and let them know, you know, nobody really knows the in-depth situation we're going into. We just have to take it one day at a time.
Coach Iglesias?
Yeah. And I think as coaches, I'm sure everyone was looking down the road before they canceled everything out. It was okay. Probably UIL will let us get 3 games in a week. We'll get it done. We'll get it to the playoff area, so there's always planning involved. And so I'm sure, it was all being thought out by all the coaches. And, and I was looking forward to this season because there were a lot of good teams out there. And it was going to be a heck of a ride for all the districts involved. And, we were looking forward, to it. But wow, when they did pull it for the remainder of the season and the school year and everything, it was just like, oh my goodness, this is a first, as Richard had mentioned, it's a first for all of us and everyone here involved. And I felt really bad for everybody. And you try to come up with some answers or something that could help, along the way. And I just think there was no answers, hey, just follow what the guidelines. We're seeing how it's affecting everyone here around the world and here in the U.S. So we need to abide by what's going on here.
I happened to be in West Texas during that time, and when UIL pulled the plug, and I was in a county with no cases, Fort Stockton, Pecos, Monahans, Crane, and listening to their articles in the paper and their news reports. Of course, the big city, Odessa and Midland, had cases. But the smaller towns were like, we had no cases. Let us play, and it was really hard for those children really to understand because they weren't grasping why it's not affecting us when you live so far out in that part of the world over there. That's another part of our state. People don't realize how big we are and how expanding we are. And, it was amazing to see how it affected the kids no matter where they were from and how devastated the children were.
Sure. We're joined by Edinburg North coach Richard Tressler, Hondo's Debbie Esparza, former mission coach Iris Iglesias, and Harlingen South's Elias Martinez. Coaches, where we're at, shifting gears and talking a little bit more about some softball. Where do you guys feel we are at in the world of softball? And we've seen softball really pick up steam, these last 10 years or so, as far as popularity, where it's the hot thing people want to see, people want to read about, people want to watch it. Where do you feel the sport is at right now? And Coach Iglesias, you mentioned that this year had a lot of great things coming to it. We saw what these teams were doing. We saw teams that were starting to peak. Where do you guys feel that it is at this year as far as a competitive level when we start looking up north with Corpus and Austin and those other schools?
Well, I think the Valley has gotten very, very competitive, and Coach Martinez broke the barrier by getting there to the state tournament in the Final Four, and it's been done by Weslaco also. So I think down here, we started in the 90s, in the mid 90s, so to speak, and it eventually made the way up to where we are. And the kids have responded. I think this softball is a great sport for females, and it's an exciting sport. And it's just, amazing is how the kids can, a level they can get to, by the keeping on the practicing, and even if they play, in club ball or they play, during the year. The coaches we have here, we all started back in, like I said, in the 90s. And so we could see where the pitching was the dominant at that time and everything. And then when they moved the pitching play back to 43, I think that gave the edge to the batters, that extra 3 feet, gave them a slight advantage. So then the pitching had to go to more movement on the ball than, as far as trying to, pitch with power and speed. So it's just a great sport. I think I love watching the people in the bleachers, the parents and all that, now that I'm in that area, and I get to see what's going on and them yelling at everything. But, I just think it's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful sport.
I would like for someone sometime to sit down and do a research, the data on how many children out of the Valley, from, I would even consider from Zapata down through Port Isabel and all that, have gone off to school to play collegiate level in softball compared to other sports. Because I know, like at Harlingen South, the years that I was there, we maybe had 1 or 2 girls actually go play basketball, and maybe 1 or 2 go play some volleyball. But we had more going to play softball. And in my time in Rainbow, when we first started, we sent 2 girls off to, a guy from Kansas came, and Well, and one of those girls ended up being a little All-American, and that was back, like I was saying, we were playing at the city park, and you know, just
I
anywhere
remember
we could
that.
get.
Yeah.
There were no fences. We had families in the backyard barbecuing. Couldn't tell them to stop drinking because it was their yard. You know, it was an interesting time. You know, so it'd be interesting to see how many compared to the other sports that we have in the valley. Not that I'm putting down any other sports, but I believe softball has given our young female athletes a way out of the valley to go see the collegiate level.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that. I think that'd be an accurate statement to make, that I think, you know, as a sport, softball is probably ahead in the area of getting kids to be able to have the opportunity to play at the next level. And, you know, a lot of the young ladies early on could have probably played another sport, but chose to play softball because they were good at that as well. And a lot of people forget that. A lot of our kids are, you know, they're good athletes in other sports besides softball too. They just chose to kind of, I guess, focus on softball, which is great. And, but it's been, you know, like Iris said about Elias making it as far as he did with, you know, Mario and Westlaco, you know, all those doors were broken. I remember back when being the first team to make it into a regional semifinal, that was a big deal. And then they made it to the state tournament. I mean, I think we are every bit as competitive. And after playing the teams that we played this year in the Seguin tournament, we lost some really tough games up there, but it makes you a better team to play better schools. And the games were all competitive and very close. And, you know, I'm just young. We were just very young this year. That's why another thing I wish I would have gotten a chance to see us finish where we would have ended up, because we were really, really coming around, and a lot of my younger players were really starting to blossom, and it was really exciting to see. And that made it a lot harder for me personally, because of not being able to finish and getting to the point where, you know, Elias said earlier, we would have been in the playoffs already. I would have liked to have been around to see that.
For the fans watching, the one thing that these coaches have in common and what makes this show special is that each of these coaches had a hand in, or they did start a program. Coach Debbie Esparza started the Raymondville program. Coach Richard Tressler started the Edinburg North program. Coach Iglesias started the Mission program. Coach Martinez, you were with Butch Brotherton when you started the San Benito program, all back in the mid 90s. So coaches, let's wind the clocks back and talk about what it was like and the challenge of UIL saying softball is a sport, here's the ball, go start a program. You know, what was that like for you guys?
Let me go back real quick to the previous question on softball here in the Valley. You know, how competitive we are. You know, it all goes back, and you know, and I've always been one to give Iris credit, because you know, softball right now is where it's at because of Iris. She started the Mission tournament back in the mid 90s, and you know, we were fortunate enough to get into that tournament, and we've been there ever since. You know, so a lot of the credit for the success here in the Valley goes to Iris Iglesias, and Iris. You know, I've always told you that. You know, and you know, you deserve a lot of the credit for this. A lot of the girls so we tell the girls here, you know, in softball, size doesn't matter. You know, in volleyball, you got to be able to for the most part, girls are tall and they got a big vertical leap, but they can get up there and spike. In basketball, of course, you got to be tall and everything. In softball, that's the equalizer. You know, speed, size doesn't matter so long as you can catch, you can hit, you can throw, and you can run on the ball. You know, that's the beauty of softball, that anybody can play, you know, regardless of the size you are, regardless of what your background is, you know, your economics, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, if you want to play softball, it's open to anybody, and you just got to be able to want to put in the work to play. You know, and I was fortunate enough to go to the state tournament twice, but again, because of all the background that we've had and the tough teams that we had to go through to get there, you know, the Edinburg Norths, you know, Tressler and I had some knockout, drag-out fights, you know, on the field. But, you know, it's on the field, you know, after the game, before the game, where everybody's friends. That's what they always say, that softball's a giant family. And it really is. It really is, you know. on the field, everybody wants to win, but off, I mean, hey, everybody laughs and has a good time with it. When a team advances into the playoffs, the whole valley rallies around them, So, and when Debbie was at South and I was at San Benito, we had some knockouts. Same with Iris, it's all been fun. But again, a lot of the credit for the success goes back to Iris. As far as building a program, we started in San Benito in 94, 95. I was the assistant for Butch Brotherton. He was there for about 4 or 5 years, so I was his assistant. So it was tough. We literally had to show the girls the difference between a baseball and a softball. When we started, we had no lights. Our games had to be like at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon because we had no lights in San Benito. The stadiums, the bleachers were ground level. We had to tell a girl what a grounder was, what a fly ball was. So we and I'm sure just everybody else. We literally had to start from scratch and work our way up. But that's the beauty of coaching. You get to start from seeing the whole thing from putting seeds, into the ground and watering it and watching it bloom to what it is right now. So there was a lot of trial and errors, because softball was new. So we had to make the adjustments. Your philosophies. What do you believe in? What do you want to do? And then work our way up from there. But I could keep going on and on about stuff like this, but I got to give more time to everybody else. But it's fun. It's building is what coaching is about, and maintaining it from there on. It's awesome. But the problems that people don't understand, and all these coaches here can hopefully will agree with that. We have a saying that says it's easy to get to the top of the mountain. The hard part is staying there. Because once you get to the top of the mountain, and you got that big bullet on your back. I mean, everybody tries to get you because you got that big bullet, and to stay up to consistently year in, year out. I mean, that's a tough battle, And all of us here, everybody you have here in the panel has been very successful at that. So, congratulations to all of us. To just keep up the good work. All right.
Kevin, I know a long time ago they used to have a City of Palms football, and they had a softball clinic at the same time. And Iris was a speaker years ago, and she was giving a speech on pitchers. And I asked her, how come every year you have a pitcher? What are you doing in Mission, Texas that gets you to have somebody who can throw the ball? I know you used to pitch when you played ball back in the day, but what do? Her comment to me was, I walk down the hall and I find the kid that's not playing anything, but wants to give me 375, 365 days a year, learning to play to pitch, and you do the work and you'll be pitching for me within 2 years. So that's how I started. I started looking for the kid that wanted to be in athletics, but really wasn't quite sure they'd fit in. Hey, come, we'll teach you to pitch. And then, you'll be the queen on the princess on the diamonds, as we call them. I remember that, Iris, from years ago.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. But that's true. We all knew back then you had to develop pitchers. It was a pitcher catcher thing. And we had to do that. And Elias, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think you made your way past heading to the state tournament, beating the team on a squeeze play. Totally just surprised everybody there. And I thought it was an awesome call at that time. But, and so go ahead, right?
Especially beating O'Connor. That was awesome.
That's right.
O'Connor.
They had knocked us out. That's why I was even happier that he whooped them, because they gave me trouble. Actually, I faced them twice in the semifinal and got beat by them both times. They're tough. They
were a tough team. Yeah. And they really did. But as far as the language and teaching the game to the girls was something, and that's why, we all fought to get softball in the middle school, because they needed those 2 years or whatever just to get some background. Because when we started at high school, they're freshmen, sophomore, they were seniors and they were just coming into knowing the game and being able to be productive. So, I'm glad they brought it into the middle schools. I was hoping everyone can do it. And I think our future right now is, UTRGV needs to step up. And then I know not just have a club team, but they need to make it, competitive. We've got players down here, and that they could, stick around and play for the university, our university here too. But softball is just, it's just like Coach Martinez mentioned. You don't have to be 6 foot. You don't have to be this and that. And there's more opportunities for anyone in softball, any of the girls in softball, and teaching them. You can tell when they love the game and what, they do, what they've done and their dedication that they do, to get better all the time. And just the language, involved in trying to, get them familiar with it so that they could understand it, and make them watch, I text them all the time. Hey, UT's playing, you better watch them, watch what they're doing, and watch where they A&M's, UCLA, all those teams, and watch them. And so, I think it was just a matter of getting that, and it was fun, fun to do. And, they could see it. And, with all the coaches that have been here all the years, that we've come around, you can tell where it's gotten from the beginning to now, and it's an awesome sight. It's awesome to watch.
Going back to 96, when I first started the program here at North, coming over from baseball, and having the background that I do, helped me a lot. But I have to be honest with you, the first 3 years were pretty rough. And, you either adapt and you learn from coaches like we have here, because I learned a ton from Iris and Elias early on, because they used to just absolutely hammer me. So, you make the adjustments, you learn from the things that they're doing successfully, and both of them especially. And then, you develop your own program and your ideas and philosophy, like Elias was alluding to earlier. And I even had some really tough games with Debbie when she was in Raymondville. She had some really good teams over there. And that's another thing. Classification in softball doesn't matter either. You can be a 6A school and be playing a 3 or 4A school, and they're going to give you all you want. It just depends on how they're coached and the talent level that they have and so forth. So it's pretty even. The playing field's pretty level. But Judy Smith, when she was at, she used to embarrass me on the bases, and I learned a lot from her running the bases. And then organizational stuff from Iris and Elias, watching the way they coach their team. I mean, if you're smart and you want to learn and you want to have a good program, you have to learn. And it's not just back then, it's every year you're adapting and changing and doing things that you see. Oh, that I'm going to try that. It looks like it'll help my kids. Just different things like that. And it's a lot of fun. It's given me the opportunity to coach my own kids, and a lot of really, really great young women have come through this school and played extremely well. Many of which, as we were talking about earlier, have gone on to play next level and play it well and represent not only themselves but the school very well. And it's a lot of fun. That's why it's this whole thing that we're going through right now is really disappointing.
Sure. I think no one really hesitated about asking each other, okay, what would you do in this situation? What other stuff do you do for your infielders? What do you do for your outfielders? It was all new to us. And so we were just like sponges and getting to the clinics and getting out there to try to bring in and learn as much ourselves, so that we could get it across to the kids. And so, that did. And I thought it was pretty, easy, so to speak, to pick it up and then, having to explain it to everyone and to get them all on the same page and do that. But, just to see where the sport has gone from back then, 95, all the way up, to right now to present, it's just a really a great thing. And I think, I'm so glad they're bringing it back into the Olympics. I couldn't believe when they took it out, and, they just felt the USA was so dominant. But, if it gives an opportunity for our kids to move on, that's what it's all about. Give them some, also some PR, some, just some, anything that can get them out there. And that's what we, I think as coaches, we all did that. We all tried to do that.
Yeah.
Coach Esparza, you want to talk about your early days in Raymondville and how you jump-started that program?
it took us a while. I believe Iris and the Harlingen schools were playing before we started. It took us about a year of being at every first Tuesday of the month meetings in Rainville at the school board, and a couple of parents making sure they were there to, we have the girls that want to play. They want to play. And, you know, it took us a while. Then they put us at a city park, and you know, one day I told them, a county commissioner, I said, well, how do I get the maintainer over here to scrape this infield? I'm tired of playing on grass. It's not the way we play softball in the infield. Well, I can bring it by. Well, you bring it by and leave the key and you disappear. And then I call home and get instructions on how to start it. And I start scraping some grass off. Next thing I know, here comes all the county. Get off that thing before you get hurt. But you know, it took us, Iris can tell you, I know her husband put many hours in there welding and building batting cages and making things where our girls could be successful and be able to compete against the teams from out of the valley, and not just be, you're just the other sport. We were determined, a lot of us were determined to make sure that we were going to be successful from the very beginning. And I guess the biggest thing I like to see now is how many kids that all of us have that are going on and coaching, you know, or teaching, and how many lives we actually touch to serve other, to teach our kids to be, you know, to where they want to help others, and how being in a team, you know, it just makes it life a little bit better.
So was that the toughest part of building a program? Is not only, you know, were your kids at square one, but the coaches were at square one, and trying to just really put one big piece of the puzzle together.
I tell you what, getting assistants. Oh yeah, I can play baseball. I can do that. We're not gonna play baseball. We're gonna play softball. We use the same terminology. We use the same game when we first started, but to see our game evolve from, you know, when we first started, it was about bunt, get your butt on base, and let's go, you know. And now we've evolved to where, you know, because I know there was a guy who coaches at TLC, and back in Rainville, I had a kid back then with Iris saying when he was at 40 feet. She could bring it at 62. She was a pitcher, and we played him at San Benito Field when Elias was an assistant, because I wasn't going to take him to the city park in Rainville to play a playoff game. So we played in Sinton, and we went to San Benito Field to play. And he still, to this day, he'll tell me, you know what? I still believe that kid's the fastest kid I've ever seen throw the ball. But it was just about put your butt out there and hopefully the ball hits it, and then you get your butt to first base, you know?
That's a good point. And on that note, it made me remember something that I learned from, I really got this from both Iris and Elias, but I think more so Elias, because he just did it always and has continued to do it more consistently. It's about playing small ball. When you play him, if your bunt defense isn't very good, he's going to embarrass you. And I learned that the hard way early on. And I'd like to pride myself now that our bunt defense is pretty good, because if you don't have it strapped up when you play him, he's going to bunt you to death and he's going to make you look horrible. So you either adapt and learn, or, you know, it's going to be a long game. So I can tell you that. But little things like that I remember, and like Debbie was saying about Iris's pitchers and so forth. And I've been really lucky to have people that have helped me with that, because I will have, even after all these years, this is 25 for me. I mean, I can do it, but the technical parts of it are kind of tough. So I've been fortunate to have kids that have come in that have already had that skill. And it just seems like we've gotten one on, cycling basis to where we can stay consistent, because that's another thing. From when we started till 2007, playing at 40 feet was a way different game than it is now playing at 43 feet. And I think they can all attest to that. It's more offensive, and the pitchers can be dominating at times, but backing it up allowed them to put a little bit more spin on the ball. But back when I first started, you know, like Debbie just said right now, there were kids just blowing it by you at 40 feet. So it's been fun. The journey's been really fun. It's, and playing against these guys have definitely made me a better coach and made my program better.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
Hey.
one thing about, the difference between softball and baseball, In baseball, you have 1 to 1.25 seconds to decide ball, strike, high, low, whatever. In softball, because of the distance, you got 0.75 seconds to 1 second to decide ball, strike, high, low, curve, drops, whatever. So the reaction time from softball to baseball in softball is a whole lot quicker. So everything is a lot more. You've got no knock on baseball or nothing like that. But in softball, the game is so much quicker. The execution is so much more precise. Talking about small ball, if we put the ball in play, you better feel that ball clean, because if you don't feel the ball clean, we're going to get to first base. You make a bad throw, we're on to second base. It's evolved so much that the reaction time, the being able to put the ball in play, the coaching, has evolved so much, through all that, and it's made it so much better and so much faster that, I mean, if you blink as a spectator, if you blink, you just miss something, and that's the beauty of softball, we all started in baseball, like Tressler started baseball, so did I, and now I wouldn't be able to go back to baseball because it's too long. It's too long. The bases are further, the pitching is further, of course. The pitcher gets up there, takes the signal, and then right when he's about to pitch, he gets off the rubber, and it's too long. And here everything is quick, and there's a lot of battles that go on in the game. The battles of obviously the both teams battling, the battling of the coaches, the battling of the fans, the battling of the mascots. I mean, there's so many battles within the battle, which turns into a war, and it's just it's so quick and it's so awesome that don't blink or you'll miss something good.
From when go ahead, Coach.
No, I was just going to talk about the early days where, hey, we were out there raking the field. We were watering it down. I would lay out all the rakes, and then I'd get out there and start raking and just kind of put the guilt on the kids, and they would go grab a rake, and then everybody would start raking. Even the parents would get out there and rake and do all this. So, I think it all came a part of building the character and taking pride in what you do. But, playing in the city parks and making it happen, and, adding, not letting anything like that or, get to anyone. But, and we, hey, as softball coaches, we have our superstitions too, we always did that. I had a game our first year, we were playing Mercedes and we were up, by 8, and it was their last bat. And so and we were at home. So I kind of look, it's top of the 7th, and all we had to do is get 3 outs. And I look, and my managers had to put all the equipment away, and I just went ballistic. They do not do that. So I made them take everything out. We won that game by 1 run. And so, but still, they couldn't understand, well, it's going to be over. No, it's not. In softball, it's not over until it's done, until the umpire says game. And I think we've all, been on that where it doesn't matter the size of the lead, even at your last bat, because gosh, it can change anytime. And that domino effect is when one ball drops, we know it's going to happen, and again and again and again. And we do, as coaches, we do everything to try to get the kids to snap out of it, but it happens all the time.
Talking, where we're at now with softball, and you've seen these kids, I kind of have a feeling that we're seeing a lot of these kids, they're bigger with their physically, they're throwing harder, they're hitting harder. Have you guys seen that trend or that change from where softball was then, and how the game, you guys have mentioned how the game's evolved, where these kids are just a different breed, where they're getting year-round training, where they're getting year-round playing? Have you guys seen that in these athletes?
Being from a small school, I think in Rio Hondo, we the kids that are athletes, and they go from the volleyball court to the basketball court, then they go dribble in basketball, and then they okay, softball season. The only time we have I think them playing and them being in the weight room has helped them all become stronger. And there are a lot of programs in the summer where the kids go and get some personal training or whatever, but it's the kids' work ethic that I think that we've seen, and we've it's involved in, if I can get fast.
Kind of froze there, Deb.
I think Coach Esparza froze.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, I think she was having a little trouble with her internet connection.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll come. Hopefully
I
she'll
can answer
come.
that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
she's
and that's true, you know, as far as the kids and you know, but I think all of it, we have all multi-sport kids, you know, and they just are athletes all the way around, and we were patient and waiting for them to get through. You know, we've had to, you know, run to a track meet, pick up a kid that runs in their event, and then bring them back or have them being brought back for the softball game. So there's a lot of give and take, and you know, as coaches, we are there for the kids, and so we are, you know, going to make sure that we can give them every opportunity at everything they want to do.
We do have some kids that specialize, but a lot of our kids are multi-sport kids. And, you know, it's nice when you have specialists, and, you know, I'm appreciative of that and so forth. But again, many of them do play multi-sports, and, you know, now they're playing travel ball, and, you know, that's helping some of them, but a lot of them don't play that. And then another thing too is, if like here in Edinburg, there's 4 high schools that all draw on the talent. So depending on where they go to school, you know, that's a big factor in staying consistent and being able to, you know, in my case, maintain a good program all these years. It's some years it's, you know, getting into the playoffs by the skin of your teeth, and then having to play Elias right out of the gate. That's not a lot of fun, but you know, the journey has been great, and seeing the progression of the sport has been awesome, as Iris was saying, and just trying to help these young women as much as you can, and encourage them to go try to play next level if you feel they have the talent. And that's another thing that's hard, is seeing a kid you know could go play next level that doesn't, for whatever reason. And you know, of course you can't force them, but I certainly like to encourage them to do that. And but again, it's been the evolution of the sport here over these the 25 years I've been involved in it has been really exciting to watch. And to your question earlier, Kevin, I think we're every bit as competitive as anywhere in the state.
Well, yeah. Coach Esparza, she's on mute.
Yeah, you need to turn your volume on.
Oh yeah, you are on mute. There you go.
Now you can go ahead and finish, Debbie.
All right. I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about the athletes there because Rio Hondo is a small school, and having your kids go from sport to sport.
Yeah, you know, I just feel like Iris saying, you know, the sharing of the athletes and the fact that the girls are seeing how much they can compete in everything and be successful with work ethic and determination. And, you know, the biggest thing that we try to stress, and I know we all do as successful as coaches, is I want my athletes on the A honor roll. Bust your butt in the classroom as hard as you do for me on the field, and you'll be successful. And I think that translates to the size and everything, Kevin. I think that all helps out.
Coach Martinez?
No, I agree. You know, it's, you know, we just got to keep working at it and getting better, emphasizing academics, you know, staying in shape throughout the summer. And, you know, we don't have very many girls that are multi-sports athletes this year. We've had in the past. So, you know, we've been fortunate in that aspect of it, you know. So, you know, it's getting better, you know, competitive wise, like Tressler was saying earlier, you know, we can compete. We can compete, you know. It's not easy. It's not easy, you know, getting to the Sweet 16, and it's tough, you know. And Coach Tressler's been there a couple of times. Iris, you know, same with Debbie. We've all been there, and everybody says, you know, can we get to Sweet 16? You know, like it's easy, you know. It's not. You got to go through a lot of tough teams to get there, you know. Then to advance to the Elite Eight's even tougher, and obviously the state tournament, you know. So you know, but through all that, you know, it comes through adjustments, coaching wise, you know, making the right calls, and a tribute to all our coaches here on the panel. You know, we've all been there, and we all understand how tough it is. And, you know, like me, I'm a YouTube junkie, you know. I get on, watch as many sports as I can, you know, especially softball. I was on with BSN this past weekend with watching Jessica Mendoza on. You know, anybody see that one?
No.
With Jessica Mendoza. Well, she had BSN had her on for about an hour, and wow, she was great. She was great. So, you know, and like Coach Tressler said earlier, you know, my biggest fear is becoming complacent. You become complacent, the next teams are going to start coming. They're going to start creeping up on you before you know it, they've overtaken you. So that's why, you know, I'm always looking for that one thing to get us over the edge, something to make us quicker, something to make us faster, stronger, you know, or change my philosophy or something. You know, I'm always looking for something like right now that, you know, we're obviously we're stuck at home. You know, I'm always, after I do my work and everything, you know, I'm on YouTube, you know, watching for something. So it all goes back to getting us as best as we can, making ourselves as strong as we can, so we can pass that on to the girls, so they can get faster, stronger, more reactive, which is going to make the team better.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, coaches, Coach, you gonna say something?
I'm just gonna give a shout out to the league coaches, the summer league, the travel ball coaches. They, you know, they put their time in also, and I appreciate that, and trying to get the girls to excel and get better. So you know, we've got some good ones down here, and you know what they're doing, and you've seen it, you know, that they are even at the younger age, starting even younger and younger, and that's basically what we need, and that's what can carry on as they come up.
That's for sure.
Before we wrap up, you know, Coach Martinez, you guys were mentioning the Sweet 16 on how hard it is to get there. I felt that these last, you know, 5-6 years, when we saw San Benito go to state, Weslaco, Rio Hondo make the region final, Edinburg North Sweet 16s. Since then, I felt that as the Valley, you know, I know Coach Brett Esparza, he and I have conversations, particularly when the season ends, and we'll say, okay, where do you feel the Valley did? Where do you feel we are at? And I feel that we're at a point where when teams make the Sweet 16, that's kind of like, okay, good, we made the Sweet 16. It's basically an expectation. You know, teams will go to the Sweet 16, and it's become, well, what have you done after that? Well, you know, and that's been the standard that's been set by these teams. And we've seen teams make state. How far is the gap is it from getting to state and actually winning it all? Where do you think the Valley's at? Like, what are we missing? What key are we missing anything, or where do you guys feel we're at as far as when we get to Austin? What are those final pieces to the puzzle?
I know for us in Rio Hondo, when we were in that Elite Eight, and you show up at the game, then all of a sudden you look up and the other team has their whole damn band and everything there. That's a little shocker for the kids that, you know, hey, wait a minute. No, you know, so you know, there's some things that happen on the outside, like Elias was saying, the battles that the girls see. And yeah, it doesn't affect us once the game starts, because once the game starts, we're all playing the best that we can. But, you know, it's the little things that are keeping us away. It's that missed bunt or the missed catch. You know, it's just on that given night, it wasn't our night, is what I see. You know, I don't think that we're missing anything. I really think it's just the little things that we're missing at that point in time that we're not executing to where we can get there.
What I think
last year against Fredericksburg, you blow them out the first game, and the next game they go back and play small ball on you. You know, it just flattened us, and you know.
What I think is, I don't think we're missing, like Coach Esparza says, I don't think we're missing much. You know, when you start getting to the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and the state tournament, a lot of times, you know, you have to get that lucky call. You have to get that lucky bounce, you know, because, I mean, when you talk about Sweet 16, you talk about 16 teams left in the whole state of Texas. Yeah. And that's a big accomplishment right there and then, you know. So, you know, to get there, you know, you have to have that call, that lucky bounce, you know. Same thing when you get to Elite Eight. I mean, now there's only 8 teams. So now you're talking about, you know, even tougher competition and everything. When you get to the state tournament, it's the exact same thing. I was fortunate enough to get to the state tournament twice. And then both times, you know, we left with the sour taste in our mouth, not so much because of, we were out talented or outplayed or anything. We were just out called. And by what I mean by out called is, excuse me, in the state tournament, you know, we're playing Louisville, bases loaded. We got bases loaded, and we're on defense. We're on defense with one down. We get the ball grounded short. So short throws the ball to what we call home plate. Force play. Catches foot on the bag, and she catches the ball, and she goes for the tag. Okay, foot's on the bag. The official behind the plate called her safe because we missed the tag. It wasn't a tag play; it was a force. So the officials in this situation, you know, it's not a call. This is just common sense. It's a bases loaded. It's a force play. And her reasoning, it was a female behind it. No pun against the ladies. Called her safe because we missed the bag. We missed the force. We missed the tag on a force play. So we lose that game. And then at that time we were up. So Louisville ends up winning and then going to state championship game the following day and winning it. So we got a raw call on that. Not because we're out talented. We got out called on a terrible call by the official. 2 years later, same thing. We're playing in the state tournament again. This time we're on offense. Bases loaded. We're bringing the play comes home. High tag. It's a high throw. Catcher jumps up. We slide under it to tie the ball game. Slide under it. Comes down. Fisher looks at me and rings her up. It wasn't even close, you know. But again, it's not because we were out talented. We were out called. The officials in that situation made bad calls. And I'm not one to blame the officials on losing games of that. But these aren't judgment calls. These are basic calls, you know. So the gap that we're talking about, like Debbie said, that I don't think we're missing much. I think when you get to the state tournament, the state tournament has to get, if you're going to have the best of the best softball teams, you need to have the best of the best officials. If you lose, hey, you know that they want it. But to lose it on a miss, bases loaded, on a forced play, you know, in my opinion, that's crazy. So we can compete.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. You know, you can't control that, unfortunately. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things I think is that also is you do have to have a pitcher that is maybe not dominating, but can keep you in games and has a defense behind her that doesn't make mistakes. You cannot make routine defensive mistakes and expect to advance. And if you can get your teams to be sound, and that's why I personally stress so much fundamental stuff and over and over again, like Elias was saying, you've got to know with the bases loaded and you're either ahead by a run or you can't let that run score from third. You've got to get that force out at home. And there are kids that the ball will be hit to them and they forget that. And they make a bad decision and make a throw somewhere where they shouldn't. As coaches, you can coach that to your blue in the face, but if they don't execute it in a game, you know, you're in trouble. And for me, that's what you need. You need to be defensively consistent, have a team that can score some runs or manufacture some runs, you know, like in Elias's case and mine too, because we've been very good at playing small ball. Iris's teams as well in the past. You have to be able to move runners from A to B and know that when there's a runner on third base with one out as a batter, all I need to do is hit a ground ball to the right side and score that runner. Something that basic. If you have a team that has the mentality to understand that, you're going to be successful. And again, that's why Elias's teams made it there, because he had the teams that did exactly what I just said. And then he, you know, unfortunately, as he was explaining, got a couple of raw calls. What can you do?
Yeah, the execution, you know, they still got to execute out there.
Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
The fundamental execution of the game has to be sound. And to what Debbie was saying, or your question actually, Kevin, is we have the teams that are doing that now. And the key is to do it consistently. That's where you want, as coaches, where we want to get our team. And, you know, I'm young, so we're still climbing the ladder, or to the point Elias made in the beginning of the show, we're still trying to get to the top of the mountain.
You know, Kevin, back when we first started, I don't know, we would spend at least 2 days a week learning terminology in a classroom setting. Like I was just saying back when we had to start it, you know, and, you know, even with our young kids that we have coming in playing JV lights and playing freshman ball and playing the JV teams, it's so much teaching of terminology and mental aspects of the game that separates them from making that varsity level. Sometimes their talent is just as well, but they still can't grasp situations. And what am I going to do with the ball when I have it, when this is happening? And that's what is separating a lot of children from playing the next level also. From going from JV to varsity ball, you know, it's a lot of classroom of teaching the terms still to a lot of girls.
Definitely.
I think throughout the state, it used to be where come playoff time, when the teams were up against a Rio Grande Valley team, it was a piece of cake, you know, but I think all of that has gone out the door now, and they were very competitive, and not just in softball, I think in every sport too, you know, and, you know, where, hey, the Valley is the area that needs to be reckoned with, you know, and they've improved so much, and they've been able to do that. And we talked about early, before I think we went on the air, about we've got to get to a point. I'm a very big advocate in exposing our girls to the higher level, always playing teams that are better than you, and so that you can get better. And you've got to expose them out there. And, you know, you may meet, you know, somebody early, or try to get into a tournament up north, whether it was San Antonio, Corpus area. It used to be Corpus, now it's San Antonio, in those areas, because that's our region. And those are the teams we're going to see when it comes playoff time. And nothing's more beneficial than to meet up with a team in a playoffs and you said, God, we played them in a tournament already. You know, we saw them when we were at that tournament. So that helps tremendously.
Yeah.
Coach Tressler, before we wrap up, congratulations. You had just reached career win 500. You're at 501.
Congratulations, Coach. Great.
Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yep. So both Coach Tressler and Coach Martinez, both in the 500 win club. Coaches, thank you for your time. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, we've been getting a lot of feedback from fans. Mark Sainz gave you a shout out, Coach Iglesias. Cecilo Gonzalez, a shout out to Coach Iglesias. Jessica Iglesias, 4 amazing coaches. I've had the privilege to get to know each of them and watching them coach. I love my mama coach, proud daughter. So
They know her.
They
all know her.
She's a great kid, man.
Coach Garza's tuning in, Mario Medrano. So we've had a lot of good feedback and a lot of people enjoying the show. And just one person mentioned that, you know, you didn't get this anywhere else with having, you know, these 4 great minds just talk about softball and, you know, how it started and where it's at now. So before we go, coaches, each of you would like to give a shout out to any of your family or friends or any message like that to your athletes, anything?
Yes.
Just go ahead, Elias. You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Quick shout out to all the Lady Hawks softball players in our community, our supporters, our parents. A big shout out to my wife and all my kids, Laura, Deborah, JR, all my grandbabies, and to Mario Medrano, the voice of the Lady Hawks softball. You know, big shout out to everybody. You know, and it's one person that doesn't get a lot of recognition throughout all the programs is the people that are our MCs. You know, throughout the valley, we've seen them evolve also. I've had Marty with me for the past 22 years. So big shout out to everybody, especially my wife.
You better do that.
I'd like to, you know, to my team, to my whole program, and specifically my varsity girls, this is going to pass. It's going to get better. We're going to be able to get back to business. I look forward to that. Find a way to work on your skill level, work out if you can, stay in shape, get off the couch and do something, maintain your schoolwork until that's over. I know this social distancing has us, doing our on all of our schoolwork online. I know how difficult that is because you lose the human element and the interaction and so forth, and it becomes depressing after a while. But you have to find a way to pick yourself up from that and continue. And nobody's more thankful than me to have the girls that I have on my team. They're great kids.
Coach Iglesias?
I just want to thank everyone. I'll shout out for my ex-team there, the Lady Eagles from Mission, and all the softball players and the coaches around. And it's great when I get to visit with them and see them, and look forward to. We've been handed an obstacle, in this whole situation, and I think it's what we can do to get our kids through it and move on. And that's the only choice that we've got right now is to move on and get them prepared. So I know I challenge the coaches to all do that and, to stay with it and for the kids to keep moving and to not only physically, but in the classroom also. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks for those who listened in, and thanks for the shout outs.
Coach Esparza?
I want to say shout outs to all the ex-players I have, and you push those daughters to become softball players. We need to keep this sport growing. A lot of room to move still and to increase our sport and push that UTRGV, Pan American, whatever you want to call it, university, to start letting us play over there. I think Iris is right that we have the kids that can play. We have kids playing Division I ball all across the state that are from the Valley. They have a chance. Let's try to push it and let's try to get us where we can all have better softball players and continue our sport.
One more thing. I'd like to thank these three for being on here and what they've done for Valley softball and the contributions they've made. Man, like I said earlier, making me a better coach, and not just me, all the coaches. And I know, like Debbie's son, Brett, he's lucky to have the parents he does. I know they help him a lot.
And I got to give a shout out to my family.
Thank you, Kevin, for doing this. Thank you for doing this.
Yes, Kevin, thank you so much, especially when you got the kids and the athletes on. Appreciate giving them that time also to do that, to be the exposure that they need also. But thanks, everybody, my family, everyone here, and thanks again. This was great.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
And then I won't say anything else. I want to thank my assistant coaches, Coach Cavazos, Coach Navarro, and Coach Sosa. My program is as good as it is because of them.
Yeah, Coach Cavazos was my ninth grade English teacher. I went to Edinburg North. I think everyone here knows that. So, and I actually graduated with Coach Tressler's daughter, Alyssa, 2010.
Yeah, in 2010, yeah.
Kevin, I need to give one shout out. Elias gave a shout out to his MC for 20 years. I'm getting hit from behind because I didn't give a shout out to mine. It's been 40 years he's been emceeing my program. So a shout out to Mr. Albert Esparza. And
Albert.
If I get hit here with wife abuse, I want to make sure I say it.
Yeah.
So once again, Coach.
On mine, Kevin, just real quick, a big shout out to all of my assistants. This year here at South, I've had Dudio Garza and America Rugelski. So our success, even when we're standing here, was continuity with the coaches. That's how important. Coach Tressler says he's had his assistants for a while. When I was in San Diego, I had my assistants for a while, and that's a big plus right there, because you're not. A lot of times you're rebuilding your team. You don't have to rebuild your staff. So when you have the continuity with the coaches, it's just so much easier. So big shout out to all my former assistants and my assistants this year with Adulio and America.
And speaking of former assistants, we're not going to get us off of here, Kevin. I got, starting the program back in '95, I had Coach Carlos Lopez who came in there, and he was, helped out with the pitchers, and he did it. And so I just want to, also recognize all the staff that has come, throughout when I was there at Mission High, and I appreciate that, all the work that they did.
Definitely. Yeah, I love softball. My cousins played it. And I know it's the sport I look forward to in the spring. So I could be here all day too. I'm sure you guys can. But coaches, thanks again for joining us. We're joined by a pair of 500 win coaches in Harlingen South, Elias Martinez, Coach Richard Tressler, and then a pair of Hall of Famers, former Mission coach Iris Iglesias, and current Hondo assistant coach Debbie Esparza. Coaches, again, thanks for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Again, a lot of really good feedback. A lot of people enjoyed the history with RGV softball and just all the stories you guys had to share. So thanks again for joining us. At 3 o'clock, we're going to be joined by Raymondville's Zaravian Armendariz, Dylan Ramirez, and Jason Cantu. And then later today at 5, old Eladio Jaimes is, I'm sure a lot of you guys remember Eladio Jaimes. He's going to be joining me later today at 5 o'clock on our sideline sit down. So coaches, again, thanks for joining us. Be home, be safe, and hopefully everything will go back to normal soon.
Appreciate the opportunity,
Thank you.
Kevin. Thank you.
Coaches, good luck.
Good luck to everybody. Bye-bye, guys. Stay safe.